What's going on, YouTube? Thanks for tuning back into another video. I'm here in the garage, but with something special. If you guys caught the last video, you already saw the first part of our new build series. This is gonna be doing a K-swap into the Integra, not that Integra, into the daily Integra. So not the one that's in the garage, that's the full race car. Sports front wheel drive, street car, whatever you wanna call it. That's B series, it's staying B series, while the daily is going K series. So the last video you guys saw on this build series was the part one. We actually pulled the swap out of the RSX Type S, which actually included almost everything that we need to actually go K series into an Integra. Essentially we have the engine, transmission, shifter cables, ECU even, and we found out, ECU's sitting over there, we actually found out that it actually did come with a K-Pro already. I got this car for 700 bucks, so considering 700 is what just a long block goes for, even more, in good conditions they go even more. This long block needs to be rebuilt, but the trans oil came out just oil, so hopefully that's fine. So considering $700 into it, we are already way ahead of the curve when it comes to actually K-swapping this Integra. This is a great build series because you guys can find a crashed RSX or a damaged RSX and literally do what we're doing, pulling the swap out, doing it here at home, and just get it done easily. Aside from that, I still need to get little stuff like mounts, fuel system, conversion harnesses, the little ins and outs, but you guys are gonna see all that here in the channel as well. For today's video, like I mentioned, we need to tear down this engine. So we're actually gonna start the rebuild process. We're gonna assess what's wrong with it. Gonna go ahead and tear the motor down. I'll show you guys some parts. I'll show you guys some other parts on time lapse, and we can actually have like a nice little video like that. But before we actually get started with that, it's worth noting, I don't know if I showed this in the last video, this thing is stuck open and corroded. Like, this engine definitely needs quite the rebuild. Not only that, but it is absolutely filthy, especially the back of the engine. And since we're gonna be tearing this down, I picked up a couple things at the store. One is just like a little pail to put under it while we have it on the engine stand, a little brush to try to get some big debris off. And I didn't think it was gonna have that much cake stuff on, so I got some Simple Green, literally a simple degreaser. It's a nice cleaner to do little stuff, but for this amount, I'm actually gonna run to the store real quick and grab the foaming degreaser. It's like a can, a spray. You put it on there, it starts to foam up and really takes off all the gunk. You can also see the damage in the ports, especially the exhaust side, and I'm sure we'll see similar in the intake as well. But that is super corroded. So what I think we'll end up having to do is tear everything down, send it to the machine shop so they can at least put it in the hot tank and get it all cleaned up. And if we need some machine work afterwards, you will, see that in the build as well. A little bit sketch. I have it on two of those little parts right now. I think it should be okay right there. Now, normally we'd want to cover up the ports to the engine and the trans, but since this is all coming apart, we're not worried about it. I'll try to avoid as much as I can, but I'll be fine. And yes, the trans will come apart even though that it's still looking like the oil came out. Just oil, no water. It'll still come apart because we're putting some goodies in it. In the last video, you guys saw that the valve cover was off. The valve cover is loosely placed right now, so a little bit of degreaser might get in there, maybe a little bit of water. The motor's being torn apart anyway, so we're not worried about it. If you're doing this to an engine that's going to go into the motor or into the car immediately, make sure that everything is sealed up and try to keep the water or degreaser away from anything that might get into the rotating assembly. So spraying it down after having placed a Simple Green on there, it actually helped a lot in the big debris on there, but it didn't really break down all that gunked up grease. So I was just gonna go to AutoZone, Advance, O'Reilly's, a store like that to get that engine degreaser, the foaming one. But then I remembered when I bought the car, I actually took it to the car wash with degreaser, and I believe I used that one if I'm not mistaken. It cleaned it up a lot, but it didn't take off all the big gunk. Now, in extreme cases, I have showed you guys in the videos before, oven cleaner, the foaming oven cleaner can be used, but if you leave it on too long, it'll start to like corrode the aluminum a little bit on the blocks. As long as it doesn't dry, it's not an issue. So I'm actually gonna go to Walmart right now instead, pick up that oven cleaner, clean the crap out of it, and it'll be a little bit easier like that. Rip. Onto the kitchen cleaning area, normally around here. Okay, easy off. Normally it's a yellow can, but I guess the blue will do.
We're gonna do a car or a toilet.
Gotta pump it, pump it. This BMW boy is wild. I got an exhaust too. An exhaust leak. All right, I'm guessing that the difference is the blue one is the hour one according to the instructions. The yellow one is like a 5 or 10 minute quick one. So essentially it should do the same exact thing, just obviously a time difference. It stresses to do it on a cold oven, and like I mentioned earlier, you don't want this stuff to dry too much. So I'm gonna saturate it nice and you know, a lot here in the garage while it's in the shade, not outside in the heat, so it won't dry up real quick. And another thing I wanted to mention, I took off the little papers that I had covering the ports for the AC compressor. Yes, we're keeping AC in the car. This is gonna have full AC and power steering, everything that works. So I'm gonna tape it up, make sure that no water or anything gets in there. I took out the old paper that was in there a minute ago, just so the little bit of water that was on it can, you know, not seep in. So gonna go ahead and start saturating it with this and let it sit for a couple minutes. Right off the bat, the consistency is a little bit different. This is more of like an oily saturation, whereas the yellow one is more of a thick foaming gel. So I guess that plays a little bit in how it's actually gonna break down the grease. But nonetheless, this will do a nice clean finish for the engine and transmission. Probably gonna leave it on. It says hour and 15 minutes for the full seeping of the greases or whatever you want to call it. I'm gonna leave it on for like half an hour maybe. Then I'll apply a little bit more as we go along, just so we make sure that it doesn't dry out. 15 minutes in, looking pretty good, fully saturated, really doing its work. I almost used the full can, maybe like 2/3 of it actually. I did a little bit in the front. It wasn't as bad in the front as it was in the back. Obviously, like I said, I'm gonna try to have this hot tanked anyway at a machine shop. And this is basically just to make it a little bit easier upon teardown. But yeah, looking pretty good. All right, so it's been about 45 minutes. It's caked on pretty good. So you can see a lot of bubbling and whatnot, saturation. It's starting to drip down a little bit. I did a little bit of a finger test right here. You can see just with like light finger scrubbing, it's already back to bare aluminum. So that with some high pressure water, even though it's not a pressure washer, it'll still clean up pretty good. And if anything, I'll give it a light second coat afterwards. All right, let's get ready for that little transition real quick. Not even high pressure. You can already see a bunch of grime, dirt, and oil / grease, whatever you want to call it. It's just dripping off. And it's crazy to see the transition on it. It was so caked up, and now it's actually looking good. Definitely a lot better. You can actually see the metal on the side cover again. And a lot of the big chunks of gunked up grease and oil are actually off of the engine now. Same for the transmission, a lot cleaner. So at this portion right here, we're actually getting ready to take the trans off. Started by taking little things off, like the half shaft, obviously, any supporting bracket that was in the way. Something that differentiates the K series and the B series when you go to remove the transmission, that actually caught me by surprise, was on the B series, you only have the big 17mm bell housing bolts. Now on the K series, I couldn't figure this out until almost the end. There's actually two, I want to say, 14mm bolts at the bottom of the transmission. So you actually got to make sure that you have access to those. It's kind of hard to do if that's the last thing you're taking off, so I suggest taking that off first and then working your way off of the bell housing bolts towards the end, the ones that you have good access to. That way it's a lot easier on you, and you don't have to spend a lot of time figuring out why one little tiny bolt is holding the whole trans. And you'll actually notice that I just got done taking those little bolts at the bottom, so now I'm just pulling the trans and checking out the clutch. Okay, trans is separated. The dowel pins were pretty rusted, so I had to pry it, hit it with a hammer a little bit. And this clutch is, in the words of Zosh, clapped. But the good thing is, trans spins freely. It sounds like there's a little bit of corrosion in there, but everything goes in perfect. This is freaking clapped. Oh my gosh. There's even this like water, grease, slime looking thing, which is pretty nasty. What I can probably do, I can throw it on the engine stand, take the accessories off, throw it outside again, and then hit it with another, round of degreaser and whatnot, if necessary. But we got the hard part off. Honestly, I was a little worried that the motor wasn't going to balance by itself right there on that little tiny part, but we made it work. It's no problem. It's chilling right now. I can go ahead and pull the flywheel off. That way the crank can have good access and everything for when we pull it out. And yeah, let's go ahead and start doing that. Pressure plate bolts are all out. Yep, that's all of them. Go see if I can pry this off because it's pretty seized on there. Holy crap. Yeah, it definitely is gonna need a new clutch. Oh my god. Damn. Wonder if there's warranty on this thing.
Bruh.
Sheesh. Oh, that's pretty bad. Let's go ahead and take these flywheel bolts off. Yep, it's a 17, so I'll have to do it with a wrench because I can't find my 17 12 point. Okay, just in case the crank spins. This in the back. Alright. Let's see if we can get this loose. They're all probably going to be seized on there. It's going to be a pain. Oh, broke free pretty good. Awesome. Let's hope the rest are like that. Give it a quick little tap with the hammer. Sheesh. All right, and it's off. Not too bad, actually. Back of the crank has some surface rust on the inside right here, but the flange of it actually looks pretty good, and the seal looks like it's still intact. We didn't have any crazy dripping or anything right there. So that means that the external corrosion really didn't go inward, so that's awesome. Now, obviously, there's probably still going to be corrosion inside from where the water got in and whatnot, but we'll address that as it, gets encountered and whatnot. Little trans and engine is apart. Victory beer. Oh, what's this? Oh, yes. Stickers are still available on the website. Total fail of a shameless plug. But a shameless plug nonetheless. Send the Papi stickers on the sptuning.com, link in description. Engine is on the stand, looking pretty good. Got some of the stuff laid out here. The clapped out clutch kit, axles, which are pretty dirty. I'm gonna get them cleaned up one of these days. Make sure that there's no cracks in the boots and whatnot. And if they're good, go from there. If not, I'll revamp them. But looking pretty good. I'm gonna start tear down real quick. I think I'm gonna start by taking the accessories off. Then I'll take the intake manifold off. Afterwards, I'll take the side cover off. Cylinder head, girdle, I think, and yeah, head will come off. We'll make sure everything's all nice and taken apart. That way we can send everything to the machine shop that needs to be either cleaned or resurfaced or whatever the case may be, and inspect to see if there's any more damage than what we already think is a low compression, used to be seized, rusty old motor. Now, before I actually start tearing into this, we need to come up with a name with not only the swap, but the whole car in itself. It's been a daily up till now. I haven't really named it or anything. But given that the motor came out of a car that was stuck in a creek and it was all rusty and whatnot, I don't know, I was kind of thinking like Loch Ness Monster or Swamp Build or, I don't know. I need you guys' suggestions, so please drop a comment. I'm gonna be reading them all, responding to see what I think about them too. And I would love to get your input on what we should call this build. So yeah, let me know in the comment section down below. And like I said, I'm gonna start tearing this apart right now. All right, so most of the accessories are off. I'm pulling off the manifold right now, and I know this is gonna be probably the most disgusting part because you guys saw all the cavitation and corrosion and whatnot on the actual throttle body, so this has gotta be, as I expect, just as nasty. Oh, there's two more hoses I have to take off. Oh, there we go. Oh my God, there is, what is that? Oh my gosh. Turn this around so you guys can see. I don't even know what that is. Is this a leaf? Oh, I think it is a leaf. Oh no, it looks like it's rust or something. I don't know, that's pretty nasty. Throw it in there with my metal scrap. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this thing is definitely gonna go to the machine shop for a nice hot tank. Well, at least cylinder, is this, I don't know, these two cylinders right here, they look decent. These two right there, especially this one, looks pretty bad. And I believe this one was the one that on the other side had a whole bunch of rust. Yeah, it was this one right here. So cylinder 2, is it? I don't know, 2 or 3. I forget on the K series. But this cylinder right here is nasty. So hopefully, I'm hoping that the valves aren't bent or anything. And even if they are, I mean, it's gonna have to be clean and whatnot. So we'll see, we'll play it by ear. Gonna go ahead and continue tearing everything down. Cylinder head obviously is gonna come off. But yeah, manifold is off with the throttle body and everything. So let's go ahead and keep on going. Got the crank pulley off, ended up using this little crank pulley removal tool. Broke one of my ratchets in the process. I had a breaker bar attached to this, and if you can tell right there, I posted on my Instagram story just now. That thing is clapped out. You see that? Boy, so that's trash now. But I ended up getting out with a big pry bar or a breaker bar, and I was using this on the end of the ratchet previously. Yeah, and then I put the jack handle up onto this ratchet, locked the crank pulley, and took the crank pull out. So that's looking good right there. One thing I did notice when I was turning over the motor, out of this cylinder, there was a bunch of water that just popped right out. So I'm sure that there's still water up in the cylinders. I'm gonna pull this outside real quick and then try to tip it over, get as much water as I can out of there. It's gonna be kind of hard without a tripod and just with one hand, but let's try it anyway. A little bit of water, a little bit of dust. There we go, some water. So yeah, something's coming out. Oh, some Marvel Mystery Oil is also seeping out. So yeah, get all that junk out of there. Let it sit there for a few seconds, and then I'll go ahead and pull it back inside. Luckily, there wasn't a lot. I thought it was gonna be a lot worse than that. All right, luckily there wasn't too much in there. You got everything that was in there, got it all out. Now I'm gonna start taking the side cover off. That way we can start pulling everything for the cylinder head off. Luckily, yeah, it wasn't a whole lot. Just stripped down a little bit. So that's good. So this motor, stripping the bolt right there, this motor was completely underwater. According to the owner, the car went into a creek and sat there for at least a couple hours, possibly a day, and then it was pulled out and sat for like a year, something like that. So it definitely needs some work. Depending how bad, I might end up fully building it. But if it's to the point that it just needs bearings, pistons, rods, or not rods, bearings, piston rings, maybe even half a mil over pistons, I'll just keep it like a nice and simple build. That way I don't have to do anything crazy and I can still focus time on La Fea. Now for those of you guys here that are familiar with La Fea, the car right next to me, it's a fully turbo, if you're not familiar, excuse me. It's a fully built, turbocharged B-Series build. That's the main pride and joy of the channel. My favorite car personally. And that one, it's not gonna get any less content now that I'm building this. This is trying to be a somewhat budget oriented. The whole car only have $700 in right now. The whole build, the whole K build. Just the purchase of the RSX. And whew, this is nasty. I'm gonna have to try to save this, but it's pretty nasty. But yeah, so this isn't gonna take away from that Fea. This is, if anything, just gonna be a nice little side build. Because that car is gonna still get some street driving, of course, but it's gonna be primarily a purpose-built race car. Whereas this will be a more street-type car in the sense of it's gonna be a daily driver, might have some goodies, all motor for now, and eventually get some more stuff, but it'll be a everyday go do a pool type thing. And that's where it's fun. That's where a car really shines, in my opinion. Okay, realistically, it is super gunked up, but it could be a lot worse. Everything still looks decent in there. The tensioner luckily still has tension on it, so I don't think there should be a reason that this is out of time. I think it should be good, to be honest with you. So I'm gonna verify all that right now. What I like to do when I pull heads off or put heads on, I'll put all 4 cylinders equal down the center, with the stroke being so cylinder 1 is coming up. That way when you go to time it, you just put it to TDC after the cylinder head's already on. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna apply that same thing right now. I'm gonna put all cylinders right down the center, go ahead and start unbolting the head. I'm pretty sure I have to pull all this stuff first, just like a couple other engines, regular stuff. But that's what I'm gonna do right now. All this is gonna have to get either cleaned, or I might just do springs and retainers, to be honest. Might even do some new cams, see if I can find a set of rollers. The cam caps, obviously, I'm going to stick with because that's already a full set to the cylinder head. But yeah, this is definitely going to need a full revamp. But look at all this chunkiness. This thing goes here. This is nasty, guys. This is nasty. But like I said, a lot better than being corroded in here. Ugh. Side is completely off. Timing chain is off. Guides are off. The head stuff is off. Cams and the rocker assembly and everything. Bottom end is off. Head bolts are off. The only thing left is basically the bare head with the LMAs and the springs and retainers. So everything's ready to pull off, literally. I wanted to do the reveal on camera though. Start to pry this up. Oh, that was actually pretty easy. Thought it was gonna be on there a little harder. Maybe off. Oh. Alright. So you can see a little closer. And like we suspected, this is fully corroded, but depending on how corroded, we might be able to save those sleeves. Obviously, once the pistons and rods are out, you can look a little closer and maybe, just maybe, give it a quick little hone, some new rings, and clean up those pistons, because as far as we can see right here, there's no immediate damage as if a hydro lock then blew out a piston. Obviously, it's first view, so we have no real indication. No valves should be open right now, since obviously there's no cams, but let's see if there's any bent valves. And yeah, right off the bat, we have two bent valves right over here. They are stuck open, and I'm gonna go out on a limb and say it is actual bent valves, not just corroded, closed, or open. But I might just tap it with a hammer, see if it closes up. Light tap, obviously, I'm not gonna hammer it. But yeah, it looks like we have at least two bent valves. Engine is pretty much fully torn down right now. I have the oil cooler and stuff. That kind of stuff is just chilling at the moment on the block. But everything's looking pretty good. Considering, you know, obviously this engine was completely underwater, we're actually looking pretty good. The bearings on the main side look almost spotless. This one has a little bit of wear on it. Nothing crazy. On the rods, they also look very good as well. Can't really see any type of scoring. Just a little bit of wear on each side. And the crank could probably use just a little bit of a cleaning up, but all things considered, the motor is actually in pretty decent shape. Now, this piston was a little bit more corroded than the rest. That's the one that was the worst one. You can see it's pretty ate up right there. But these rings were completely corroded onto the piston itself. The other ones actually freed up. 2 and 4 freed up. 1 and 3 are actually fully corroded onto the piston. So those rings wouldn't have worked at all had we kept the motor untouched and unopened. So it's a good thing we're gonna get that cleaned up. And I'll probably end up just giving it a nice little hone and then maybe cleaning those pistons, see if there's any scoring on the side. If there is, then I might bore over. But as long as the hone comes out nice and I can get some new rings, just go ahead and seal it back up. Probably go from there. All right, so we are pretty much set for today's video. Luckily, we were able to tear down the engine down to the bare block. Trans is obviously off to the side here. We're gonna be doing some transmission stuff in the future, but first I really wanted to tear down the engine and see what I needed to get those parts on the way. From the looks of it, I'm not gonna actually clean anything up today, but from the looks of it, I'm pretty sure I'm just gonna end up having the machine shop hot tank the block, the cylinder head. I'll get 2 replacement valves, make sure that those are the only 2 bent ones. Obviously, I'll check them all, make sure nothing's leaking into it. And I'll just do a little corresponding, you know, cleaning. You guys are gonna see that in the video, in the next couple videos, what I end up deciding to do. But for the engine side of things, we are pretty much torn down to the bare minimums. The transmission is gonna get opened up soon so we can verify everything's still in good condition. Everything is shifting perfect. I feel like there might be a little bit of surface corrosion on there, but nothing crazy. Like I said, when we drained the oil from it, it was just oil that came out. It wasn't any water or gunk like it was when I drained the oil on the engine. As for what we're doing in here, I actually have something to put into the transmission. That's gonna be in a further date, like I said, another video. So you guys have to stay tuned to that. It's actually gonna be a pretty beneficial video for you guys trying to build a budget car at home. So stay tuned for that. But yeah, we are pretty much torn down. Everything is gonna get cleaned, inspected, and assembled in the future. And yeah, I'll start ordering some parts tomorrow once I actually know what needs to be ordered. I'm gonna clean everything up and inspect it like I mentioned, and we can go from there. But guys, I need your help. I need you to let me know in the comment section below what we should name this build. Obviously, we have La Fea being the ugly car, the ugly girl in Spanish. That is what the theme of the car has always been. That's what the name of the car is, and that's what we're trying to go for with this car, except for the engine bay, because I'll show you guys real quick. If you're new to the channel, you don't know, but let me show you the engine bay. So the car is ugly, you know, it's nothing nice. The engine bay, the one thing that I'm proud of in this car, this thing is fully done up, fully shaved engine bay, repainted, painted by Vince, TIG welded, pie cut, full exhaust, Downstar goodies, Whitfield manifold, vibrant hose, like the whole works. Everything's nice in this engine bay. So the exterior is ugly, La Fea. This engine is somewhat of like a swamp/creek build. It has a lot of corrosion, you know. It's got a lot of abuse to it. Surprisingly, actually, though, speaking of abuse, the thrust washers were in relatively good shape. So the actual life of the engine was pretty good, even though that there was a K-Pro on it, which I don't know where the K-Pro is right now. It's somewhere around here. Considering there was a K-Pro, you could think, oh, maybe they beat on it a lot, but the condition was really nice, aside from the corrosion and the sludge. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is we have the theme for this car right here. We need the theme of a swamp/ugly, crusty. Can't be Christina, that's Zosh. He's got his brand on that, so let's respect that. But it needs to be something around that. It's got to be something that it was ugly, swampy, something with water. So let's think of a name collectively. Let's have that discussion open in the comments, and we can have that back and forth. You say something, I'll say something. We'll reply to the comments and collectively have that conversation. But thanks for watching, guys. If you aren't already subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe and notification bell. I didn't go too much into depth on disassembling the engine because there's a lot of videos on that. I did do a few time lapses here and there, but when it comes to the assembly of the engine, we're actually going to be doing a full build series covering that, a couple episodes on that as well, and give you guys some tips and tricks as well. Like I said, if you aren't already subscribed, make sure to hit the subscribe and notification bell. If you can hit the like button, I would really appreciate it. That does help out the channel and myself a lot. That'd be great. And we'll see you on the next video, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Peace.